your host of the C-Suite. It's so nice to be here with all of you today. I am your millennial marketing strategist, personal branding expert, and a LinkedIn top performing instructor. And today is very, very, very exciting for me because I so admire our guests that we have on the C-Suite. In addition to really excited about our topic of discussion, as I know that it's always top of mind for me, as it is for clients, as it is for so many of us in entrepreneurship and marketing. And coming off of the year 2020, there's been so much to reevaluate and pivot in our business so that it is so top of mind for many of us of how to turn social media traffic into sales, how to create more digital growth, how to refine our marketing efforts online. And we truly have the queen of digital growth and performance marketing on today's show, Rebekah Radice. And she is absolutely a phenomenal force online. If you don't follow her, then definitely check her out at Rebekah Radice, and I will have her name up here just in a few seconds because she is the founder and co-founder of 5 companies. 5 companies, and Rebekah learned what works and what doesn't work when it comes to building a business through digital and social media marketing. Rebekah's process and system will help you wade through the clutter and build a scalable online marketing strategy that drives measurable growth without adding hours of marketing stuff to your to-do list. And that really sounds like a sweet situation and really fitting for the C-Suite. Wouldn't you agree? So what I'm going to do right now is open up the chat. Hey, everyone. Thanks to my platform and partner, Restream. We're coming to you live on LinkedIn, on YouTube, on Twitter, Periscope, and on Facebook all at the same time. Gotta love that. And let's bring out Rebekah before it gets too late in the hour because we have so much to talk about, her and I. Without further ado, Rebekah Radice, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for being here. How are you today?
Oh, I'm doing great. And thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
It is such a pleasure to have you. You might have noticed, Rebekah, on a previous Millennial Talk Twitter chat. We've done some great Twitter chats together, but this is the first time Rebekah and us are really doing something live. So it's always nice to, I say, meet you versus tweet you. So thank you for joining us. Yes. Rebekah, we have such a great topic today. So for the next 30 to 40 minutes, for all the entrepreneurs, marketers, those who are looking for more digital, professional, and performance growth, you've come to the right live stream because we're talking about how to turn your social media traffic into sales. And Rebekah is such a queen of performance-based marketing, but also with more of a humanized approach, in my opinion, than more of that clickbait, PPC, SEO, kind of more billboard-like marketing, I say, versus conversational and engagement-based marketing. And Rebekah and I had a little time to chat before we came live, and we started to get on the conversation of how nothing's the same because of the last year that we all lived through in regards to business. So Rebekah, I'd love to start there with you in regards to what does that mean for you? Nothing is the same. Can you define that for us? And what does that mean in regards to how we'll go about our marketing efforts moving forward?
Yeah, it has been a year, right, that we have all lived through, and it is interesting to see the evolution that has transpired over the last year. And as you and I were discussing just before we hopped on, the idea of sales, the idea of using social media for sales has really changed as well. And what I think is terrific is that what we've seen is it come full circle back to conversational, like you were talking about. Mm-hmm. So, you know, I look back over the years and think about when we all started back on social media back in the day, right? And we were all figuring it out together. We were all having conversations and hopping on and talking about what was going on in our day or our life or whatever. And then all of a sudden what happened? Us marketers got involved and we decided, hey, we can use this in a lot better way. And we started with bullhorn marketing. We started shouting out our messages. And unfortunately, we got away from where we really began, which was that relationship marketing. And so I see that the one positive that came out of this last year is we've come back to that, come back to everything grounded in relationships, everything grounded in relationship marketing, which you touched on a little bit. And thank you so much for the compliment, because I do really believe that, and hope that it comes through in my social media, is that sales cannot begin without us having the relationship, the right to be able to even ask for that sale. And I'm certain, Chelsea, that's why you and I connected in the first place, why you and I have remained friends over the years, is you're exactly the same way. You infuse your personality into everything that you do. And, at the end of all of this, that's what people want. They want to know who you are. They want to know what you're all about. And they want to have that opportunity to engage in a conversation.
And it's so interesting because, Rebekah, we've been doing the C-Suite for 3 months now. And every C-Suite has been so dynamic, with another wonderful guest like yourself, and a great, meaty, sink your teeth into kind of topic. And at the foundation of all of the takeaways and framework and aha moments provided by each of the experts, it really boils down to stripping it down and going back to basics, or the foundation, if you will, right? Because everyone's kind of looking for the secret sauce, this magic you're going to sprinkle over yourself or your business, and you're going to catapult your success or 10x your sales. But it's so much about the foundation being essentially thoughtful and purposeful and intentional, and all about relationships and creating engagement and community to really grow personally and professionally, right? And so obviously in having the conversation of performance-based marketing, digital growth, how essential are relationships? Are relationships the fundamental essential for turning traffic into sales?
Yeah, absolutely. And I was giggling just a little bit when you said everybody wants the secret sauce, because that is the secret.
That is a secret.
There's no secret. Everybody has their own path. Everybody has their own journey to figure this out. But yes, 100%. The basics, or the foundation of everything we do online, not just social media, is relationship based. It's all about reaching out to somebody, saying hello, having a conversation. So whether you are a solopreneur, an entrepreneur, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you are, working for a brand, we all have a persona. We all have a personality and a voice that we bring to everything. And that's an interesting aspect of this, that too often I find people don't take the time to figure out, first of all, what's important to me? What do I value most that I'm going to be talking about? And then, why does that matter to my audience? Why would it matter? And who are those exact right people? Who are those ideal customers that I want to connect with? Because as we start to think about that, the content becomes a lot easier. Is starting to think about the topics or the types of content. All of a sudden that starts to emerge as we're thinking about who these exact right people are. So starting there, square one, who are those people? Who are those people I actually like and want to spend time with and hang out with? Because that's going to make a difference too in how you interact and how you communicate and how you have just that very basic conversation.
I so couldn't agree more. And one of the first calls that I have with my coaching clients when we're refining brand identity, personal branding, and marketing strategy is getting clear in who you are, right? And who you want to service most and are most passionate about helping, most equipped to help. so that you can further refine who that target audience is, or target client or customer or follower might be, so that you're speaking their language online that much more natively. You're connecting with them that much more organically, authentically, versus it coming off a little bit more billboard, a little more static, a little more stuffy, a little bit more forced, even salesy, right? Because if you're so clear on who you are marketing to online, you should be able to speak that language and feel those needs and pain points and pressures and understand the demographics and psychographics of that target audience. So would you say step one, fundamental, where to start in how to convert traffic to sales is really understanding, one, that the importance of relationships, but who is that target audience and where they are online?
Yeah, most definitely. That is your starting point, is figuring out what you just said. You know, who is that market? Who is that person that is looking actively for what you have to offer? Because to your point, all of a sudden you can have organic conversations that just spontaneously happen because you're talking about the very thing they're interested in. You're passionate about what they're passionate about, and you've got a solution. You've got something that gives them hope. So when you understand your market, you understand their motivation. You also understand the intent of that market. So what is it that they're looking for when they're looking for you? Don't think broad. Don't think I want to be everything to that particular market. You want to get hyper specific into what are their particular problems and how does your solution solve that better than anybody else? And once you get that clarity, once you start to understand who they are, then you can start to work on, how you are going to message that, how you're going to position that content. But yeah, it's really a foundational, when you talk about getting back to the basics, it's even a step backwards a lot of people need to take, especially over the last year with all that's changed. Never a bad time to take a step back and just reassess, is the market you want the one you have? Because sometimes the tough answer to that is no. And I have been there. And it's, it's a process of reworking everything that you've got going on as a business, as a brand, as an entrepreneur. But it's a great place to revisit at least yearly, just to know that who you're speaking with are the right people.
That's so important. So, if we're in the process of assessing or reassessing who that target audience is, right? And we're ready to start putting in the energy and effort and persistence, because I think a lot of the misconception about growth online, and Rebekah, challenge me if you think that I'm wrong, or agree with me if you think I'm right, but, is everybody's looking for the quick fix. Everybody's looking for the Insta solution. And growing an online community, building a brand, building a community and engaged audience that can convert to sales doesn't happen overnight. And if we're not consistent and persistent in our content efforts and engagement efforts, then we're not going to see the growth that we want to ultimately get to. So how do we take the first step? And for someone who's like, all right, I'm going to spend an hour today focused on relationships and outreach. Where can one begin if it just feels uncomfortable or inauthentic or confusing as to how to build relationships online today?
Yeah, it's such a great great question. I was speaking with somebody earlier about this and how awkward it can be for so many, depending on our personality. It doesn't feel super comfortable to just reach out to a perfect stranger. But the great part about it is it's like building a muscle. The more you do it, the better you get at it, the stronger you start to feel about it, which translates into confidence. And confidence is something everybody connects with. I'm certain we can all think about that person that we're connected to, whether it's on LinkedIn or Facebook or Twitter, that it just exudes confidence in all that they do. Well, certainly they didn't start there. None of us
No,
start there feeling 100% confident. And certainly none of us feel that way every single
all the
day.
time.
Yeah.
Totally.
But it really just starts with having one conversation. So challenge yourself. I would treat this like any other appointment. Calendar this out that you're going to spend, and be very honest with yourself about how much time you have. So if it's 30 minutes a day, if it's an hour a day, there's no perfect amount of time. It's just getting started. And then getting it in your calendar. If you're doing this for business purposes, which I'm assuming most people watching are, do it 5 days a week, and pick a time that you can stick with, that nothing else is going to interrupt you. And then, like I said, stick with that to where you're going to those places where if you're already established, there are people having conversations, say over on Twitter or on Facebook, and just start to inject yourself into that conversation. And by doing that, you're just asking a question. Maybe it's something super simple, or you're just responding to something somebody else said. Maybe you're giving some feedback. It can be very, very simple. But what that starts to do is create trust. You're creating trust where people, one, they know you're going to show up. You are showing up consistently. They know what you're there to talk about. So they're going to start to get a sense for what's important to you, what's interesting to you. And then depending on what social network you're on, every time you write something, there's a link back to your actual profile. So people are able to click over. They're able to learn a little bit more about you. I'm sure, Chelsea, you're the exact same way, where I'm looking at your bio, I'm going out to your website, I'm reading through, all of your content that you've put out. So I can start to get engaged for, what are those commonalities between us? And that's really as easy and as hard as it can be. And I say hard because building that new habit is always a difficult place to start.
Totally. And I think a lot of people's, comeback or barrier to that is time. I just don't have enough time, right? And I'm sure you hear this from clients all the time. It boils back to time in the day, right? There's just not enough time in the day. So for those who feel that there's just not enough time in the day to chunk out an hour, a half hour, 10 minutes to focus on more conversational efforts, relationship efforts, outreach, what's your comeback to that?
Well, my comeback is that if it's important for you and your business, you've got to make time for it. So you will absolutely find time for things that matter. We find time for our family. We find time for our kids. We find time to read a book or whatever those things are that are really, really important to us. And so, yes, believe me, I do the same exact thing where we're prioritizing. We're like, nope, just don't have the time. And what you can do is take a look at your calendar and see, where is your time going? Are you spending a whole lot of time, like we all are these days, on Zoom or virtual calls that maybe you could whittle those down to 2 instead of 3. Maybe you could turn one of those into an email instead of having to sit on, a 30-minute call. So if you're really honest with yourself about where your time is going, and if you're not quite sure what that looks like, then I have a challenge for you. Get, your favorite way to take notes, whether that is digitally or the old school way, and write down every single thing you do for 3 days. It's not an easy task, not for the faint of heart, but I will tell you, it exposes the lie within that, Chelsea, which is we all have time. We're just not really paying attention to where it's going. And so once you do that, once you start to look at your calendar. Once you start to figure it out, then you can chip away at what you think you can, do away with. It's not going to happen overnight, certainly. And, if you've only got 10 minutes you can chip away at within your day, then use those 10 minutes to build your community.
Totally.
I know you are a shining example. And I would tell you my business would not be here today if it weren't for taking 10 minutes, out of the day just to build. And I saw, I think it was Jack that said the nurturing the community is so tough, or Jackson rather, I get that. And it's something I say, commit 10 minutes a day. It's not going to happen every day. Let's be honest.
Right.
But as long as you can commit to showing up consistently, that's what matters. And consistently showing up, talking about those same things that everybody else that you're interested in connecting with is talking about. So that's another really important aspect that I'm sure we're going to touch on, which is clarity in your message, and then making sure I know it's an overused term, but staying on brand so that you're not veering so far off, you're alienating the people that are finding you and they're wondering, why is she talking about that?
Right. Where is this going? And why does it sound different than what I was liking initially in a way? But I so agree with you is, for those that are saying I don't have enough time in the day, maybe we need to reevaluate how we're prioritizing the time of the day and what actions we're prioritizing over other actions that really could be the reason why you're not seeing the growth you want to. Maybe because you're not prioritizing those tasks enough. I talk about this in my LinkedIn course, How to Work Smarter, Not Harder. And I have an entire video dedicated to what I find what works for me is time blocking my schedule. So I evaluate my calendar and I really create blocks of time dedicated to specific tasks. And I actually time block email and I time block social media because it is so essential and important for me to engage my community consistently. Engaging my community consistently, creating content and sharing knowledge consistently does convert to sales and engagement and impressions, and engagement and impressions convert to revenue. So I've learned how to prioritize it by truly scheduling time in my calendar to be present on social media. So just a note to self, if that's not something you ever thought to actually put into your calendar versus, whenever I have a free minute every day, I'll pop online. It could be something that, actively scheduling it into your agenda, into your calendar, into your day-to-day of this hour is dedicated to social media engagement. That could be a way to start refining the muscle, right, of getting actually, active online daily, every other day, whatever it might be, but scheduling it versus going, whenever I have a moment, I'll pop on Twitter, I'll pop on LinkedIn, right?
Yeah. Right. Well, and it's also recognizing what you just talked about, which is social media is one piece to the huge puzzle. Jackson is talking about his blog and that he's writing blog content. Jackson, I started the same exact way as you. In 2004, I started my website, RebekahRadice.com, and my blog. And at the time, I had no idea what I was doing or, how I was going to build a community. And so we do have to recognize that there are so many different outlets and that social media is just a pillar within all of this that is helping us generate those conversations, generate interest, get people from, that social channel over to say our blog post or over to the video that people are watching right here right now. So you do have to think about as well everything that you've got going on and how you're utilizing all of those different channels, all of those outlets to drive that sale, because it may be that you're having different conversations on social media than you're having in your email as opposed to on your blog, as opposed to, Facebook Lives that you do or any other type of video. So your time can easily go when you start to think about how much maybe content you're creating, or how many conversations you're trying to have. And when you do start to look at all of that together, I find it helpful, because social media as itself can feel a little daunting or overwhelming. But when I thought about it from a content creation standpoint, as a writer, as a blogger, then I could start to figure out, where do all these pieces fit into my puzzle, and then how do they support my overall goal. So I think that's another critical step that we often gloss over, is thinking about, where is your home base? Where are you ultimately moving people? Where are they ultimately taking action? So is it on your landing page, your course? Is it on your blog? Are they signing up, for your newsletter? Whatever that situation might be. It's just really thinking through your entire sales process, your sales funnel. Where do all roads lead to? And then how does social media fit into that for you? Because again, it is a little bit different for everybody.
Absolutely. And Jackson just said something so, like, you hit the nail on the head, Jackson. You and your wife scheduled 1 week of social media content ahead of time and have seen an increase in engagement. I think that, to work smarter, not harder, to help create consistency and persistence. If you can schedule or have a framework of content a week, 10 days, 14 days, 30 days out, I call it like a bulk calendar, then that really gives you an opportunity to engage in real time, because you're not on the day-to-day creating content, sharing content. You've created the framework for this content calendar, and you're able to, schedule it or click post live right on the day-to-day, but it gives you that time back in the day, so where you're not creating the content, you're more engaging around the content, engaging your community about the piece of content. I'm all about kind of creating that content calendar and even evaluating the 30-day framework ahead of time. I had a great C-Sweet Live. Rebekah, I'm sure you're familiar with Natalie Savat.
Yep. Uh-huh.
Another force in social media. And, she said such a great term that totally stuck with me. She's like, you don't want to go to lunch with a friend and only have that friend talk at you versus talk with you and ask you how you're doing too. And that's how we should be approaching social media, right? We're not just bombarding people with content and how-tos and tips and what my services are and why you should work with me. It should be a two-way conversation. So it's, one, about what content you're creating and sharing with your audience, and then two, what conversation you're creating around that piece of content, right? To build trust and engagement and thought leadership, because all of those elements will help you convert that traffic over to sales.
Yeah. And that fits perfectly. Jason had a question here about transactional versus relational. And is there a time, when you should just be all sales, all transaction? And if we think about what you just said in terms of a framework, then there is a method to the madness where you are, maybe a month leading up to, I know you've got your hugely popular LinkedIn course. So if we think about that, you probably started doing your launch marketing months in advance of that coming out. And what were you probably doing? You were telling stories. You were sharing more about the why and how this all came about and the problems that it's solving. And you were doing it in a relatable way with, somebody that had struggled setting up, a LinkedIn that anybody was paying any attention to, or somebody was struggling to find the right job because they just didn't know how to properly position their profile, their bio, or whatever the case might be. So You just need to think about your job, your business, and your offerings. And how can you talk about all of those in a way that is interesting, that whets the appetite of your audience, and that turns that it really is a catalyst for conversation, because it begins to get people interested to the point where they're going to ask you questions like, "Oh my God, Chelsea, that's so exciting. When is that going to launch? When does that come out? It's exactly what I need." And
Right.
that's the enthusiasm you want to create. But when we're transactional all the time, we are doing exactly what you just said. We're talking at people. It's that bullhorn marketing I talked
Mm-hmm.
about, instead of just this conversation of, we're talking with each other. We're sitting down. We're across the table together, and we're just having, a friendly conversation that feels very natural. And that is, I know we've touched upon this a couple of times, but if you feel as if you're struggling to write something that it does feel just natural, start to speak it out loud. That really helps me too.
Yes.
To just pretend like I'm having a conversation. In fact, my poor husband, really took the brunt of this initially many years ago, where I would just talk everything out to him, and say, okay, did that land right? Did that sound correct? Did it come across, in a way that I was trying for it to come across? Or, what was your takeaway? So you may not have somebody that you can beat up on. I mean, use as
Yep.
as help
Yep.
throughout this process. They have to be very understanding and forgiving. But
Or even just
just,
recording yourself and
yes,
hearing what it sounds
exactly.
like,
Yep.
right?
It really goes a long way to
It
hear
does.
yourself say it out loud to how
Yes.
you write it. Yeah.
Totally, totally agree. Yeah, hearing something out loud versus reading it in your head totally sounds different. And anytime I'm
Oh,
creating
yeah.
bulk content, or even the scripts to my LinkedIn courses, if you're creating content that layers on top of each other, I think speaking out loud is so helpful. And Jackson has another great question for you, Rebekah, while we're on the topic of kind of creating content frameworks and consistency in our content. Is, do you have any favorite software apps that do help in scheduling and overall performance growth? What are some of your favorite tools out there?
Yeah. Yes. And there's plenty. And I think I've probably tried them all over the years. As I imagine you probably have too, Chelsea, as our, needs change. But
Totally.
yes, the one that I use for scheduling, for performance, for reporting, is Agora Pulse. And Agora Pulse, what I
Mhm.
love about it is it really does give you complete control over every aspect. So if you have a variety of different, say, products or different content that you're sharing, you can actually create what I would call, I don't think they do, but content buckets, where they're based off of your topics. And you can schedule those based on, when your audience is online. So it's really using automation in moderation, using automation to help do some of the heavy lifting, but then give you the data back that you need to be able to really, assess and
Mhm.
drive those changes as you go forward. So, far and away, one of my favorite, in terms of management for, so first of all, Agora will manage any of your social networks, but a lot of the just interaction I do directly from the app itself. I know for a lot of people, they choose to use a particular tool. There's Sprout Social, there's Buffer that's been out there forever. There's so many different tools. It really does depend.
Hootsuite and
Yes, of
mhm.
course.
Mhm.
I've just always been more, I like being, on the platform itself, so that I've got all of the features available to me. As we know, with the algorithms, they really do benefit that person that is utilizing everything available to you. So if if you have the availability to get in and just hop in, you've got that 10 minutes and you can just hop in, and within 10 minutes, say, hi to 5 different people that have maybe responded to some of your content, respond back, with a thought, ask a question of other people that you want to connect with.
Continue the conversation.
I tend to keep it simple and not get too complicated with too many tools.
Yeah, you know what? I echo everything you just said, because everybody's always looking for the magic tool as well. And I think the magic tool is you.
That's exactly
right.
Yeah.
is you getting clear and prioritizing and creating that framework. I know I keep saying the word framework, but the more solidified and clear your framework is for your target audience, your brand identity, your brand messaging, your service offerings, and your engagement strategy. I do think that just being active and present on the channel itself goes the longest way. And you have a wonderful, analytics provided per channel as well, that you can further learn more about your audience, right? Peak performance times, audience demographics, what content is performing better than others, and all of that data can help you further refine your strategy as you go on and on. Rebekah, that leads me to another question. So a lot of people go, oh, this just isn't working, right? Maybe they've been doing it only a week. Maybe they've been doing it a month. How long should someone give a strategy before going, this isn't working? Right? Or before identifying that something needs to be tweaked or refined? What's that timeline in your opinion?
Well, my opinion is you need to look at everything in the long term. So this is going to be a long play. You are going into this knowing it is not going to provide, outstanding results over the first few weeks, even over the first few months. And I think that's a shift in mindset that needs to happen, because that is where people get really defeated. They're depressed very easily. So you need to give it at least 6 months, in my opinion, to really know if this is working for you or not. And Chelsea, we were talking about earlier too, that there's never a bad time, especially right now, to reevaluate and say, I've been all over the place. I've, been creating videos for YouTube. I've been over on TikTok. I've been, doing stuff on Facebook and on Instagram, and I'm everywhere. And are all of those performing? And if the answer is no, don't be afraid to walk away. There's absolutely no reason. There was a day that marketers were preaching, you got to be everywhere. No. Yeah. You just need to be where your actual people are, where the people that are interested in working with you or, buying from you are spending their time. And then I find that frees you up too. That takes off so much of that stress. And all of a sudden you're able to say, okay, now I've got 2 channels that I can totally double down on, and I can give far more time to and create unique content. And to me, that's the important piece here too, is that you're really thinking about who is that particular audience on that particular channel. Yeah, and how are you creating that conversation on that particular channel for them? And once you do that, things start to, I think, feel a little bit easier. But it really, my answer is go into it with the idea that this isn't going to take you a few weeks to a month. You've got to go in it knowing you're going to have to give it at least 6 months to a solid year to know if this is, truly worth your time.
I'm so glad you said that, because I think, time is distorted, right? Because we are this instant gratification society today, right? We can order something today that's delivered to our doorstep tomorrow. We hear a lot about the overnight success sensations versus the slow burn, but consistent sustainable, scalable success. Becoming an overnight sensation does not mean that it's going to be the business that lasts forever, right?
Yeah.
And I'm all about sustainable, scalable strategy and success. And I'm always talking about at least 3 months, at better 6 months, to really roll out this strategy, commit to the strategy, and identify what's working and not working within the strategy, so that you can tweak and refine from there. And so talking about how to turn your social media traffic into sales, we've identified so many essentials, right? You have to build the social media brand awareness and presence and community to drive traffic, to become the customer, or to gain trust within your community for them to go, yes, I will purchase from you because I trust you as an expert or a thought leader or as the service provider. So a lot of the elements that we've touched on: brand refinement, getting clear on your message, really understanding who your audience is, who your customer is, and where they are on social media. It's all about content, right? Because your content is what's being put in front of that audience consistently. That content should be a blend of building expertise, thought leadership, educating the customer so that they trust you to be the expert to help them create their goals, not being everywhere and trying to be everything to everybody, because you can't, right? And really
You can
getting
try,
clear.
but it's exhausting.
It might not work, right? Exactly. It is exhausting. It might burn you out before you got started, really.
Yeah.
I like to say, pick your top 3 to 4 performing channels. I think that we can all benefit from being on LinkedIn because it is this active, live, real-time resume right now. Then, what other channels? Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, TikTok, Clubhouse, where is your audience primarily, right?
Yeah.
So those are a lot of organic marketing strategies, a lot of fundamentals and essentials. Like if you're not doing all of those things that we just rattled off, then you can't possibly be converting traffic to sales. Now, then there's that next level, right, Rebekah, where you have this organic, a real-time, genuine strategy going on.
Yeah.
But then there's an advertising piece to your marketing efforts, to your traffic growth, to your performance growth. Facebook advertising, LinkedIn advertising, paid advertising, paying for SEO, paying for PPC, paying for, clicks. That gets confusing and also could be expensive. And what's your approach to how much paid advertising and marketing you should be doing to all of your organic advertising and marketing efforts? Where do you stand on that? What's your best practices and processes?
Yeah, and it's a really confusing aspect. And I think it's because there's this perception that throwing money at a problem is all of a sudden going to solve all of the problems. And instead, throwing money just throws your money, straight down the toilet. Especially, how incredibly costly advertising can become if you're not doing it correctly. And that's why the piece that you talked about, the organic strategy, is so important. And I find that the majority of people never get to the point where throwing a whole lot of money at an ad strategy actually makes sense. And it depends on the size of your company. It depends on where you're at with your products and your services. It depends on, have you proven your guided path to purchase? Have you utilized all of those channels? We have barely touched on building up your email list and how critical that is in all of this, and how important that's going to be within your organic growth. So I say all of that just because I challenge people when they're like, well, let's just let's create an ad strategy and we'll do some ads over here on LinkedIn, and we'll do some on Facebook, and maybe we'll boost some posts and this and that. And they get very caught up in thinking that this is going to, be the solution to all of their woes. And the truth of the matter is, there is so much available to us, so much that we can do in our content creation and in refining our strategy. And that is almost always where the holes need to be plugged, where we see leaks before we ever dive into creating that ad strategy. So I would really challenge everybody that if you're getting the itch to, put some money behind what you're doing, make sure that you have thoroughly tested everything that you're working on, thoroughly tested all of your email marketing, every single, CTA on your website, every element on your website, so that you know without a shadow of a doubt where you are losing those people, where are you losing potential conversions, what is it. And this is the other clarity that comes with that is, what is the language that's really speaking to people? So that when you say this as opposed to this, you're going to convert that person every single time. And when I ask people those kind of questions, it gets really awkward, really uncomfortable. And so many don't know the answers to that. And there's no judgment in that. It's just exposing opportunity that there is a lot more in organic than I think we give it credit for.
Oh, so want to amplify that message and then some, because again, it's back to the basics of putting in the time and the energy of creating awesome content, getting clear on what that content should be, making sure that content strategy is consistent, and being present, showing up more than throwing $100 towards an ad, because that ad is going to be more of I call it billboard messaging, you call it bullhorn, messaging, marketing.
Yeah.
Same thing. And I will be super transparent with everybody right now. I can't tell you the last time I spent $1 on a paid advertisement. I spent more of my time and energy goes to showing up for my community on a weekly, consistent basis, whether it's Millennial Talk Twitter chat or a live stream or an awesome piece of content or collaboration with a like-minded thought leader, just to kind of have more kind of crossover traffic. There's so many things that we can be doing that we're not throwing money at, but it's more spending time on that I think is ultimately going to create a larger ROI in the long run. And there's a lot of marketing tactics out there, Rebekah, right? Content marketing, video marketing, email marketing, influencer marketing, and then you have your paid marketing, PPC, SEO, Google Ads, right? Is there, as we're still kind of new into 2021, is there one or a combination of marketing strategies that you do feel, every entrepreneur, small business, big business needs to do today to cut through the clutter?
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because I immediately go to email when, there was everybody beating the drum. Oh, email marketing is dead. No, just the way we were using email is definitely dead. But it works so perfectly if you've got, a social media presence of any kind. Maybe you're just an artist and you're on Instagram and you are using that link in your bio and all of your conversations, all of your content, is leading over to the sale of your work. Well, you've got a guided path to purchase. You're taking people from Instagram over to, say, a portfolio. And from there, maybe they are moving into your email list because they want to learn when you have new pieces that become available. So you just got to think about how those pieces work together. But no matter who you are, no matter what type of business, social media, email marketing, content marketing, three perfect pieces that always work well together because you can work them together in a very natural, conversational kind of way where they don't feel like you're forcing them to take an action or make a decision. They're actually choosing. So they're self-selecting off of, say, Instagram and saying, Chelsea, I love that piece you just created and you just shared. I'm going to click over to your website. Oh my gosh, I love this piece. So now I'm going to sign up so that I can see more of your work. Or maybe you've got a course on how to create content just like that. I'm going to sign up for that. And now I'm just going to start a natural conversation with you in email where we can go a little bit deeper, more personal in that conversation. So for me, again, I'm always thinking about how do we keep it as simple as possible, but as trackable as possible so that we can track all of our results. We can see exactly what's happening from step 1 to step 2. Where are we losing people? So we go back to talking about that funnel. Did people click over to my website and for some reason they, my bounce rate is incredibly high. So I'm wondering where these people are going. So it gives you a lot of opportunity to, again, really start to dive into what's going on here. What is really causing the issue within my conversions, which is, I know what this topic is all about, how to increase our conversions. And so, yeah, those three pieces work wonderfully together. And it just comes back to what we've been talking about, which is thinking about how are you going to use social media to get people from point A, to point B? And then what's going to be easy for you to keep up with? That's another really important aspect. Yeah. For people, especially if you're an entrepreneur and you don't have a whole lot of people helping you out, what can you actually commit to? Where if you are writing a blog post, if you are, creating YouTube videos, that could take you anywhere from 8 to 40 hours a week, depending on how much, content you're creating. And then you've got to add into that all of the emails that go with that, all of the social media promotion that goes into that. So I think it's being very honest with yourself too, in how much you can actually take on.
And stick to more than 1 week, right?
Yes, that too.
So many incredible foundational, fundamental, essential. How many words can we add on to that sentence? Actionable, relatable.
I think we got them all.
It's so clear to me, even just if you just watch this one, live stream or recording alone of, the real key elements to creating social media growth, converting social media growth to traffic, to sales, the things that you can't avoid or the things you can't deny in order to, really convert your traffic to sales, to customers. And I think if you're looking at all of your followers as customers, that's probably a perspective or a mindset you need to shift, because all of them should be looked at as people and people to create relationships with and engage versus dollar signs, right? I'm just coming off of a brand partnership as an influencer marketing, partnership where I never felt that I was being looked at as more of a transactional relationship versus a ambassador awareness relationship. Everything was more about the conversion or the sale rate versus the content I was creating, the brand awareness I was generating, the engagement we were creating for them to also repurpose and amplify through their channels. And we can't look at this as less transactional, more real, more relatable, more humanized. I mean, we're craving human connection as it is, and we have to look at the digital landscape in that way versus this robotic, billboardy, transactional lens. It has to be from this more humanized approach. And I think, that's a foundational element to everybody's strategy. Obviously we need to generate revenue to have a sustainable business, but all of those clients and customers should be looked at as relationships, not just cha-chings, right?
Yes. Well, which is exactly why, we've hit on several times times here, knowing what that outcome is, not only for those customers, what outcome are they looking to create, but what outcome are you looking to help them create? And what does that path look like? And I think too often, again, people start with, well, I'm just a blogger and I'm creating content. No, you're not. You're a business owner that's creating a product that you want people to purchase. And so you have to think about, how are you going to get enough people interested to get them through that funnel? So obviously, I'm kind of glossing over all of that. There's a lot of, math that has to go into that, to think about, how many people you've got to actually pull in that top of funnel to get them out, so that you are making a living that you're looking to create. And for me, it comes back to lifestyle that you're wanting to create. So really thinking about that too, in terms of, how much can you keep up with? Well, if you're, creating 80 hours worth of work for yourself, but it doesn't fit or match the lifestyle that you've envisioned for yourself, that's where you got to take a step back and really reassess, what you're doing and why you're doing it, and how you're going to be able to bring those two into alignment, so that you really love what you're doing, and what you're doing is in direct support of that life you want to live.
Totally. Absolutely. And that's all the power, again, in what is that secret sauce? What is that magic tool? It's you, right? And it's you taking the time to get clear in those answers, and in that strategy, and in the time you have to dedicate to the priority things versus, my husband, Jordan, he's one of my biggest mentors, and I call him like, the head of my board, the board of advisors for Chelsea Cross and Chelsea Productions.
That's great.
And he sometimes reminds me of, Chelsea, are you working in your business or on your business?
Yes, very
and
important.
you can kind of get sucked into the things that are tedious and timely, and that are not necessarily the money making part of your business. So it's really about evaluating priorities, needs, lifestyle, goal, and what's realistic for you to commit to consistently, for you to really see that growth. So many amazing golden nuggets, Rebekah. I so appreciate all of this time. So before I let you go, I'm going to just ask for 60 more seconds of you. So we talked about so many incredible takeaways throughout almost an hour here. But in 60 seconds, Rebekah, if you could amplify this message, like if everybody just knew this, if everybody just did this, if everybody would stop doing this and instead turn this way, what would be your 60-second quick tip that you would want to make sure everybody heard before the end of this live stream?
Ooh, that is tough with how much we talked about within this. But given this this last year, I would say give yourself the freedom to take a step back and really reassess. So take a look at where you are showing up. Where are you spending your time on a consistent basis? And then write out how many hours you're putting towards all of that. So, if you're spending 8 hours on blog content, if you're spending 10 hours on video content, if you're spending 5 hours on social media content, if you're spending another 10 hours on client calls, write all of that down and figure out, is all of that really leading to the results that you want to create? Because this feels very basic, but it does take us back to getting ourselves back in alignment with what we value, why we started our business in the first place, and are we really working towards what we started working towards in the first place? Because, with this last year, and with any year it happens, but certainly this last year, we all had to pivot. We all had to shift. We all had to rework everything. So now is a great time to look at all of that work you did, everything that you adjusted, Is there a new ebb and flow to your business? Did you maybe, fire some clients that were really difficult that you'd held on to for a long time? So is there room now for new potential customers? Did you launch something, maybe a brand new course that surprisingly you didn't think it was going to do well and it touched a nerve and did incredibly well? So should you be doing more of that? And that is sometimes that internal tough work that we can push away from, because it's easier just to keep in it, like your husband was talking about, the in and the on. Sometimes it's very easy to be able to just keep going and keep pushing and thinking that the more time we put into something, the better our outcome is going to be, which of course we all know that is not the case when you're not working on the right things. So
Right.
yeah, that would be my biggest tip, is give yourself the space and the freedom and the ability to take a look at everything that you've created, everything you've done, everything you're doing right now, and make some difficult decisions, or some very exciting decisions about how you're going to improve upon those results, or what you're going to get rid of that feels heavy and just uncomfortable, or not something you even enjoy doing, which we've all been there too, where you get
Yes.
sucked into doing stuff that you think you need to do. And when you take a step back and look, they're not actually bringing you any results. So,
Mhm.
I think there's a lot of freedom in that. It's a bold move too, that really empowers you as a business owner to know I'm making the right decisions within my own business, and I have the right to do that at any time. It doesn't have to
Absolutely.
be, at the end of the year and because it's a New Year's resolution.
I think that is such a beautiful place to end on, and a lot of and give everybody a moment to reflect on after all this great information shared throughout the hour. So I so appreciate you and all of that you shared with us today. Rebekah, where can people stay in touch with you, follow you? How do people stay connected?
Yeah, the easiest way is just my website. So RebekahRadice.com. And good news, even though my parents made it difficult, you can still find me if you spell it wrong. And then you can connect with me across social media from there. So I'd love to see you wherever you are spending your time.
Likewise, thank you so much. And you might see Rebekah and I crossed over on each other's channels, as we are always supporting each other.
Yes,
Maybe
indeed.
another millennial talk in our near future. Thank you so much for all of your words of wisdom and insight today. And I so appreciate you. Thank you so much.
You as well. Thank you again. It was great being here.
Thank you. Have a great rest of your day, your evening, wherever you're coming from, whatever time zone you're in. And we'll see you here soon on the C-Suite. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye-bye.